My name's Cody King, and this is my channel, Cody King's World. I'm going to show you how I built my very first worm bin. I'm also going to show you what I use for bedding, what I was feeding them, and where I got the worms. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you what it looked like after 2 months. So stay tuned and let's get into it. As you can see here, I'm drilling a bunch of holes on the bottom of this tote that I picked up at Walmart for $7. This is an 18-gallon tote right here. The holes on the bottom of the box will be for any extra water to drain out, and the holes on the side will allow air for them to breathe. Now, let's get them some bedding. And I recommend using fresh compost that you make yourself. This pile right here is a little too fresh though. It's too hot, and if I were to use this, it would kill the worms. So I'm going to go ahead and give this compost pile a turn with a pitchfork. And now, let's go check out this other compost pile that I've had sitting around for 4 years. That's more like it. 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's perfect temperature for my worms. They're going to love this stuff. I filled the tote about halfway with compost. And this is my first time raising worms, so I'm not exactly sure what the correct ratio is, but for the 1,000 worms that I put into it, it worked out great. I also threw in 2 scoops of leaves. This is what it looks like now. Another great thing to have is cocoa coir, but you don't have to have this. For me, having the compost and the leaves is working out great, and for me going forward, I will probably just be using compost and leaves from now on. If you've never used cocoa coir before, it's pretty simple. You just get the brick, you put it into a bucket of water, let it sit for about 30 minutes, and it will soak up all the water, and then it'll easily just break apart just like this. Now, the other bucket though was really soupy, and that was because the other bucket had a hole in it and all the water drained out, and this one just sat there. But that's why I have those holes in the bin, so it's going to come into play here. Now, if you're putting the worms in the box today, I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. But for me, I still have 2 days until my worms get here in the mail, so I'm going to go ahead and mix this together, let it drain out for the next 2 days, and when the worms get here, it's going to be the perfect moisture. I put rocks in another tote, and that way it will help elevate the other tote when I put it on top. Put the lid on, and I let it sit on my back deck until the worms came in the mail. Once the worms arrived, I brought the bins inside the house, and that is where they stay. I bought 1,000 pure red wigglers from urbanwormcompany.com. I got pure red wigglers because I want to breed my worms. If you're mixing breeds, like say if you had European night crawlers mixed in with these and they breed together, they will create a cocoon, but it's going to be sterile, so you're not really going to be producing a lot of worms that way. Most of those composting worms is a bunch of worms mixed in together, so be sure to get pure red wigglers if you want to breed them. Now, the time is finally here. I get to dump my worms into my brand new bin. Very satisfying moment. Now, before I put the lid on and let the worms enjoy their new home, I'm going to give them a good spray down because they've been inside that box for the last 4 or 5 days, getting shipped around. The soil they came in is a little bit dry, so it's best to go ahead, get it all moist, spray the whole bin down, get it nice and wet, and then put the lid on and let them hang out, enjoy their new home. Check them out. Pretty cool. And this camera really gets into detail, and this is the Google Pixel 6. I was feeding the worms once every 10 days, and I would shred up leaves with my leaf shredder, and I also throw in some food scraps. Great tip if you don't want to attract bugs into your house is to freeze the leaves and freeze anything that you're going to feed them, and that will eliminate the eggs and kill off the bugs that are in there. Also, if you have food that's about to go bad and you freeze it, you can just use it whenever you need to use it. some of the main things I was feeding mine was bananas and watermelon, and I've been feeding them a lot of cucumbers here lately. I've been getting a lot of those out in the garden, and anything that goes bad, or if I just have a surplus of, I'll go and slice it up and throw that on top of the bin. And I think it's a good idea to get the bedding and put it on top of the food scraps, and it'll just reduce the chances of having any fruit flies or any type of bugs coming around. And if you're not sure on how much to feed them, just start off small and work your way up. You have a higher chance of killing them with too much food, and a less chance of killing them by not feeding them enough. I also bought 300 African night crawlers. They're about the exact same price, but they're a bigger worm. And I gotta say, I love these things. I think the African night crawlers is my favorite worm right now. I mean, look at these castings. They're huge. They're almost like mouse turds. But these are African night crawler turds. They are great for your garden. And that is what all this is about. Collecting the worm poo and being able to spread that on any plant that you would like. And it's going to be bursting with flavor or bursting with flowers. It is just a great natural fertilizer. Way better than all the artificial fertilizer and all the chemical fertilizers. So that's why I went ahead and I even built myself my very own sifter so I can collect the worm castings, the worm cocoons, and also be able to collect the worms and start the whole process over of breeding these worms. So if you're interested, you want to follow along, please subscribe to my channel. I will go over how I built the sifter and what I've learned so far in the last 3 months of raising these worms. Thank you for watching.